Welcome back to the Shared Diary. This is the space where the private becomes public and the stories we usually keep to ourselves finally find a home. I'm Lori.
I'm Debbie. And I'm Nicole.
We are three women with no secrets, just life. Because life is always better when the diary is open. So grab a seat, lean in, and let's get into today's entry. Well, hello, guys. We're so excited that you're here. You can probably tell we're missing one of our wonderful hosts, but we are without Debbie today. But I'm Lori, and this is Nicole, and we're so excited you're here. If you're joining us from YouTube, why don't you put in the chat YouTube? What about if you're joining us from LinkedIn? Then put LinkedIn. And if you're joining us from Facebook, put Facebook. We just want to know where you're coming from. And this is a shared diary. So this is a shared experience. And so we want that interaction. We want you guys to put those comments in the comment because we're going to be asking some questions. And this is a fun conversation type podcast. It's not just us talking, it's you talking too. So today's topic is, why is it so hard to let people see the real me? And this is something that I think I've definitely struggled with. And Nicole, you're nodding your head, you have too. And so we're just going to be asking some questions, opening up this dialogue, and hopefully by the end of this episode, we'll be able to take a breath and maybe show the real us. So this is the Shared Diary because life is better when the diary is open. And this is, like I said, a shared experience. We're opening our diaries and we want you to chime in. So jump into the live chat or leave a comment, and we'd love to hear what you're thinking because life is better when the diary is open. So, okay, this today is going to be probably hard for some and probably easy for some. Some of us have tackled this and kind of gotten it down, and others of us are still working on it. So I just want to ask, have you ever walked away from a conversation thinking, why did I just say what I was thinking? Why didn't I just say what I was thinking? Or maybe you felt like people knew the version of you that's easy to love and not the real you. And so many of us spend time and years trying to fit in and keeping the peace and all of that. We've talked about people pleasing in the past, in some past episodes. So today we're opening the diary about being authentic, belonging, and what it really means to let yourself be seen. So thank you for listening to me. I'm going to give you a chance to chat a little bit about your thoughts on this topic.
Yeah, this topic really resonated with me. And, when you were talking about being the real you, I think sometimes, it's not always like I could have said something. I go back and be like, what did I say? I go back and I'm like, what did I say? I've had nights where I've come home and, you're out with your friends or whatever, and you start sharing some like deep conversations with people. And then sometimes I come home and I replay it in my mind and I'm like, did I say the right thing? And did I hurt anybody during this? Or like, all those things. I question myself sometimes. And so this topic has been really important for me because I think it's stretching me again to see how much I'm actually showing up as the real Nicole all the time. And can I do that? And do I feel safe to do that? And all of those things. And so I was really excited about this topic because I think a lot of women that I talk to feel the same way, going back in their mind, did I say the right thing? Did I do the right thing? Did I act in the right way? All of those things. So I'm looking forward to that. And Lori, what about you when you think about you and conversations or being in a room? How about for you?
Yeah, I definitely resonate with what you said about kind of rehashing conversations in your mind. And I had to kind of train my brain not to do that because it is what it is. I did my best and I just need to move on. And then if something comes up in the future referencing that moment or that conversation, yes, I will have had time to think about it, to maybe cool down if it was heated or whatever. And yeah, so I definitely resonate with this topic. And I think it is hard to be ourselves, especially in this world of social media. You and I were just talking about this before we went live. I was like, sometimes I wonder about this camera in my computer. Like it shows more wrinkles than I feel like I have. And so we were talking about filters and all of that. And I'm like, I really try not to use filters just because I want to show up as who I am and how I look. But the cameras are so good. Like when you look in the mirror, I don't know. Maybe this is the real me. But we tend to criticize ourselves and be so hard on ourselves. So it makes sense that it's hard to show up authentically as, who we are. So I want to talk about the quote we'll be, kind of anchoring into. Why is it so hard to let people see the real me? When you hear those words, what comes to mind? Do you think most people are showing up as the real versions or the version they think others will accept? Can you remember a time in your life when you felt like you couldn't fully be yourself? What made it feel unsafe? I would love to hear from you, Nicole. Can you think of a time in your life that you couldn't show up as yourself? You didn't feel like you could?
Yeah, I think there's probably been multiple times actually in my life. I think I can think back even to high school. And I remember learning at a very young age that I could kind of be a chameleon if I had to, depending on the room I walked into or the people, in order to fit in. And so, I would sometimes be a part, it was a part of me, but not necessarily the full me. And so high school, I think, was where if I was to look back, that's kind of where it started, me trying to fit in, like try to fit into places and rooms and with groups of friends. But I think it also, as I went along in my career, depending on what room I was walking in for, a business meeting or, and even to events like weddings or whatever you're going to, it's interesting how sometimes we put on a different part of us to be in that room. And there's a reason. I mean, some of it is, like, social things that we've been taught over time that you should act this way or be this way in a certain setting. But it is interesting to me that when you do that, how far does that go and how often are you really you? Like how often are you practicing being really you? So I think it's been many times for me, many times. But yeah, yeah. How about for you, Lori?
Yeah, I find, and thank you, Lonnie, by the way, it's a challenge to even really know or find the authentic you. That is so true. And that's something that we can practice and learn and grow and do together, right? That's why we've created this space for this conversation so that we can encourage one another in these things. Because the worst thing about this type of mindset of not being able to show up as the real you is that you feel alone. You feel like everyone else has it together and you don't. And so I definitely have felt this in my life. I've felt like, yes, for sure, high school, because we're all so insecure. But even in later in life, when I remember, you know, when my kids were younger, bringing them to school and maybe seeing some of the other kids and their parents and comparing myself. I think it's really hard when you're comparing yourself to show up as the real you. And for sure, I would, look at maybe the outfits they're wearing or, thinking like this mom, I mean, she looks incredible. How did she get, 4 kids ready and drop off and look like, look so good? But yeah, so definitely, I've definitely the specific one, I guess, that could come to mind for me would be when I was such in the mode of people pleasing that I literally felt myself saying things that pretty much weren't true. And I basically, I wasn't being true to myself. I would say things like, oh yeah, I can do that. I remember when I signed up to be homeroom mom and I was like, why did I do that? So yeah, I mean, for me, I look back at my life, high school, yes, of course, and then young mom. And it wasn't until, I think really until like 2 years ago, like 2022. So I guess 4 years ago, whatever that is. Yes, math is hard. um, 4 years ago, until I like literally had a breakdown and I realized I was running around being so many different versions of myself for so many different people in my life that I didn't know who I really was. And I didn't know how to show up for myself because I didn't know who I was. So I know, Nicole, you do this work with people. So I am sure that you have plenty of experience in this with, really helping other people, specifically women who are facing burnout or who are high performing women, right? Just kind of feel into themselves and really feel grounded and confident and secure. And so I would love to know from you, from your perspective, knowing that you're such a transformational coach, that you work with people every day, what are some things that we can do to really show up as who we are?
Well, I think, like you were saying at the beginning, it's actually practice. Like we have to actually start to investigate who we are. So I think it starts with getting to know us first. What are the things, what are the stories that I've carried for so long? What are my habits, my patterns, all of those kind of things. So getting to know like who am I? Like how do I show up every day in my life? So I think that's where I often start with everyone, and not from a place again of shame or judgment, but being like, this is how I am showing up, but doesn't match the way I want to show up, doesn't match the way I want to be. And so we often look at that, and many times it's not. Many times it doesn't match the way we want to live or how we want to show up with other people. But we've been doing it for so long, it becomes our comfort zone, right? It's just becomes who we believe we are at the time. And then I really help people start to find out, what is it that you would want? How do you want to show up? Like, how do you want to show up with your friends? How do you want to show up in your family? All of those things. And, we start to practice being that person. And I will say that when you haven't been yourself for a long time, and you've been carrying stories of what you thought you were, and when you start to realize that a lot of those stories actually aren't fully true, when you start to practice being who you truly would love to be in every room, it takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of courage because it's so uncomfortable at the beginning. And isn't it funny? It's so comfortable being somebody you're not for many of us, because we practice that for a long time, in order to fit into rooms, in order to be loved, in order to, feel accepted. We've practiced being something else. And so when you have to go and do something different, which is going to be actually fully you, I get people to often practice this in scenarios where it's not, the stakes aren't as high, right? Just like everyday conversations, practicing saying, I would love this, or this is what I like to do, or, any of those kind of things. I think, we work on what you would really love, and also know at the end of the day that you can go to sleep being proud of being who you were that day. And I think that's one of the biggest things, is when you can go to bed at the end of the day and say, "Oh, I was really me today. Like I was fully me." And that way we're not abandoning ourselves. We're not, for everybody else. And it will be uncomfortable. I know it for myself. Anytime I've had to practice this, when I haven't done it before, I worry, have I hurt somebody? Did I say something wrong? Did I cause an inconvenience for people being me? All of those things. But then I really think about the fact of what I do every time when I'm not me is I say that I don't count. I don't matter. Right. And so that's kind of a process we work through. But I love finding out stories that we've held for a long time that really aren't true. When we have that aha, and we're like, yeah. And that those stories are not getting us to the life we would love, to live the way we would love. Those stories, if we keep being in that shell of who we are, we don't actually get to live fully expressed, fully being ourselves. So for me, that has been a process that I have walked people through and walked myself through, for sure. What about for you, Lori? What has worked for you to like come back into yourself more and being able to show up as beautiful Lori in this world?
Yeah. Oh goodness. Well, I love that. I love that you just said, you're walking people through the stories that they have in their minds. And thank you, by the way, Lonnie, for saying, finding the you that's not in our thoughts or emotions, the you that has the truest energy. It's an ever evolving journey. And that is so true. Thank you, Lonnie. I
Mm-hmm.
think for me, I was telling myself a story for a long, long time that my ideas were stupid. And I didn't even realize that I was telling myself this story. It was like I was scared to initiate conversations if I had an idea in a meeting or an idea in our family, or I would hold back because I thought, well, that's kind of, I don't know if that's, I would overthink whether my idea was good or not. And it didn't come out until I was actually in marriage counseling at the time. And the counselor stopped me because I was in the middle of explaining how I felt. And he said, Lori, I haven't even counted how many times that you've said you're stupid, but you are saying that over and over and over again. I want you to go home. I want you to think back, and I want you to relax, and I want you to just get quiet and think back to the first time that you thought that you believed that, because typically it's earlier on in life. So I want you to find your early memory of that thought, go back to that and talk to that child. And I know you probably do inner child work with people, Nicole, and I've stumbled upon it in counseling, and I just thought, well, wow, okay. And I remember going back to that story, that belief that I thought my idea was stupid, and it was actually not even really a painful or traumatic time. It was literally me, and I've shared this with my dad, so I can share this now, but it was literally him telling me, no, Lori, we're not going to go get an icy. I remember it devastated me. And if you don't know what an icy is, it's like a frozen drink that you go to the gas station, you pour it out, and it comes out, and it's wonderful. It comes either in blue or strawberry. And I always loved the Coke or Dr. Pepper version. And I just was craving an icy, and my dad said no. And I took it as a rejection. And I took it as my idea was stupid because it didn't get approved, and we didn't actually go with that plan. And so I think that for me, that was one of the foundational things that I worked on. And now I pitch ideas all the time, whether they're good or not. I just think I have an idea. What do you guys think about this? Right. So I think that for me, that's where I can go back and say, yes, it definitely it started with a thought or a pattern or a belief. And, squishing that and recognizing that you replace that thought with the actual truth, and then you work from there. And so, yeah, I think another question is, where do you think our fear of being judged or rejected comes from? And that's an interesting question. Where do you think it comes from, Nicole?
Well, I was just thinking about what you were just saying. I just want to say, first of all, when you call them icy, we call them here in Canada, we call them Slurpees. We go and get our Slurpees. I don't know if you call them Slurpees, but we call them
Yes.
so Slurpees. But I was thinking about where they come from, and some of it's society for sure, right? We interpret the way we are supposed to be in society. So there's rules. There's rules when you go to school. There's rules in your household. There's rules in maybe your community, your church, or whatever place you're in. There's always some rules and things that are put in place, and those rules, depending on how you interpret them, you can make a meaning out of those rules, and then you kind of live from that place. And I was thinking about when you were talking about that experience with your dad, and another child could go through that and not have that, right? So it's always the meaning that we're making. It's always the meaning that we're making in that time. And I remember, so I was with my dad. This is so interesting too. My dad and I were at a big business meeting. This was when I was vice president of our family business, and I was with him in this meeting of, primarily, it was mostly men. It was almost all men and me. And I was very young in this and not super experienced in it. but very excited. I was very like, let's go, let's do the thing. And I was like, I had lots of ideas. But I remember we were in this huge meeting and they asked an opinion from the crowd on something. And I don't remember what it was, but I stood up, like I put my hand and I stood up, and I think my dad looked at me like, like, you just stood up. And I'm like, yeah. And it was so interesting because the room went silent. Like I said what I needed to say, and then the room went silent. And I remember being like, I will never do that again. Like I was like, I will never, like and the same kind of thing. My ideas don't matter, or that was just silly, or they were stupid, like just a dumb idea, because everybody just stared at me. And I was just like, oh my gosh, right? And so from that moment on, it became really hard for me to, in a big group, to share, because I was so concerned what somebody would say. I was, that feeling of like, we long to be part of something. We long to belong, to be accepted, all of those things. And then when that could be a risk, it's interesting what your mind will do to you. And so I've had to really work on that again. Like, no, say your things. Like you have to, whether somebody agrees with it or not, it doesn't, that's up to them. But if it is something on your heart, if you don't say it, it never gets out there. You never get to see that it could come to life and it most likely somebody else, what I've found is most likely somebody else is thinking the same thing, but they just haven't said it. Right. And so when you're asking where it comes from, I think it comes from all our life lessons along the way and the meaning we make out of it. And some of the meanings are great, and some of the meanings that we hold inside without even telling anybody. It's like a rule. Like I made a rule right then that I am never going to do that. We have these rules, right, that we make up for ourselves, but we don't always share that with everyone. And then it can really affect how you show up, because the real me was that. The real me was the one that was excited to stand up and say what I wanted to say. And then the one who's so reserved and questioning everything really wasn't the real me. I find like that whenever you feel contracted, you can almost go to your feelings to sometimes know whether you're doing the thing for yourself or whether it is yourself or not, by the way you feel. Right. And anytime I feel really contracted, I'm usually on the wrong path. I'm usually in a not great place. Whereas where I feel excited and I'm, passionate, I'm usually living from my heart. So for me, Lori, that's how I have seen this play out for me. But what about for you? What do you see? Like, where are we learning how not to be ourselves in rooms? What about for you?
Yeah, well, when you said when I'm contracted, when I'm limited, I'm not living as the authentic me. That really resonated with me, because I feel like I can feel things now that I went through a period of time where I learned that I have signals in my body that I was ignoring my whole entire life. And it took a pretty drastic event for me to actually realize that those feelings matter. And so now when I'm feeling that contraction, I do stop and I say, okay, wait, and honestly, I've felt it when I feel it over and over and over again in one specific situation or category. I really do flag my mind and say, okay, now is this actually serving me best? What about this situation or this person is triggering me? Why is my body giving me these signals? Sometimes it's a clue to go a different direction, whether that means separate yourself from that person or just reframe the situation. And I've had to do that over and over again. And I've got better at it. I'm not going to say I'm great at it yet. But I will say the one time that I can remember in recent years, taking an idea or something in my heart that I really wanted to do and moving forward with it, was starting the Be Awesome Network. And I did not know what I was doing. I mean, we talk about that in this podcast, that we just started this and we're kind of learning as we go. We started the first episode and I'm like, okay, now how do we get it on Spotify and Apple? Oh, so, we're learning as we go. And so when I started the network, I just kind of threw myself in there and signed people up to interview, much like this, and had conversations highlighting people. And I found the more I did it, the more I felt joy, because I was serving other people. I was following a dream of mine to get my voice out there, whatever that meant. And it was very fulfilling, but it was in my heart. And I let it happen. I let it materialize. And so I think that's a great example for me when I think about when I've actually faced those fears, showed up as the authentic me. I mean, there were some times where I was doing interviews from the beach and interviews from coffee shops and interviews in my car with a fake background because I had, I had an appointment and I didn't get to the coffee shop in time, or I had something in my schedule that didn't allow me. So I'm toggling to my phone. And so I think the idea of, following your heart, like you said, is super important, because that really is the core of who you are. It kind of lives in your heart. So I want to kind of shift gears. There's another question I want to ask. And by the way, hello, Debbie. Debbie is commenting and saying hello to us. We miss you. We miss you. And hello, Craig, Chasky, and also Lonnie. Thank you guys for joining us. And if you're joining us and you haven't commented yet, please comment. We want to hear from you. We also want to hear from you on some things that maybe have been aha moments in your life when you actually showed up as who you were. Or maybe you're still fighting this and battling this, and you're having trouble with this. And ask a question, because this is an interactive experience. So if you have a question, please ask. But I would love to know, Nicole, what do you think people would be most surprised to know about the real you? Because we're talking about being the real you. I feel like I know you pretty well, but what do you think people would be surprised at?
My gosh, you know what? I think one of the things that as I was moving along in this personal development journey, is I started to become really spiritual, and that was new for me. And I actually was really nervous about letting people know how I feel about energy and how I feel about, things that are not your everyday topic, and my curiosity about spirituality. And I was nervous about that because, I know it wasn't always mainstream, although I think it's becoming way more. Talking about it is a lot more than mainstream now than it used to be. But I was nervous about people like thinking I was too woo or I was too out there. But I've always been so curious about our essence and who we are and where we've come from, and what's possible, what we can create in our life. And the more I started to learn about spirituality, and I learned about the mind, and I learned about so many things, there's so much to discover. And so I remember when I first was doing this, and when I went into hypnotherapy, because when I first went into hypnotherapy, there was a lot of people that were like, what? You're into hypnotherapy? Like, isn't that like where you put people on stage and they like cluck like chickens and do crazy things? And I'm like, oh yeah, no, that's not the kind of hypnotherapy I was talking about. And I understand, because that was in movies, and a lot of people, that's what they saw, and they're like, can I get out of my trance, and like, will you make me do something crazy? And I was like, no, like that was not my understanding of hypnotherapy. And in fact, when I first learned it, it was more so that I could help myself and my clients think differently, right? To see things differently, to feel things differently, and to help us understand what we've carried for a really long time. And so for me, I think, the real me is somebody who's so curious about life and loves very deeply. I love very deeply. I care very deeply for every single person who's in my life. I'm very emotional. I am like we've talked about in here before. I cry at commercials. I cry at almost everything. But I feel life a lot. I feel people. I feel things, and it's really something that I don't want to hide in myself anymore. Like, I think I did hide a lot of that before because I didn't know if people would take me seriously, actually. and but now I see it as one of my gifts, or one of the things that I can offer people, is to be in that relationship with them and see all that's possible for them. So kind of a long answer to that, but that is more of who. Oh, and I'm also, like, my kids would say, I'm really kind of a little nutty. Like, I like to dance everywhere. I like to do like crazy things, and they never know what I'm going to do. Like, I'll dance in stores. I will be like doing things that they are like so embarrassed of. And but it's just like, I love to have fun. Like, I love to not take life so seriously. I love to laugh, all of those things. Lori, how about you? What would people maybe be surprised about you, or part of you that maybe has been challenging to be able to say?
Yeah, well, I totally resonate with what you're saying about being goofy, because I'm the same way. In fact, sometimes my kids, the app called Snapchat, it came out and they did like daily posts and stuff, called it Streaks, I think. And so I added Snapchat to my phone so that I could, communicate with my kids that way, right? And you did filters and it was super fun. And I would like do a daily streak, and I don't know why I did it, but I did it. And then I started adding my friends. My kids' friends started adding me, and so I had all of these friends of my kids that were on my account. And my kids now, they're 20 and above. I just got one yesterday, a memory. Like, Wyatt, he sent me a Snapchat memory, and it was a video of me doing something silly. So it's like, I totally get that. And I used to be kind of wanting to be, even in starting the network, and sometimes I battle with, should I be completely professional, or should I be like the real goofy me? And so I vacillate between those two people, and I think that's okay. I think that's okay, because it's good to be professional, but it's also good to be the real you. And so I think what people might be surprised to hear is that I'm kind of a butterfly. I I I have the ability to walk down the street and stop and look at a flower inside of a bush and see all the intricate little things that, especially here in Florida now that the foliage is so pretty, you know, I can take myself out of the real world into kind of my imagination pretty easily. So I kind of flitter and flutter around sometimes, and I might get a little distracted and daydream, but at the same time, I also get a lot of stuff done, and I show up as who I am. But I do have that tendency to kind of, I think that's why I enjoy going to the beach and just immersing myself in my surroundings and noticing those things. And the seashells, I just love seashells. I have a whole cabinet full of seashells. I used to have just a little jar that I would, add a few as I toured the beaches. But now it's like, now that I live here, I can just like hoard them all. But yeah, I think I can totally identify with that, Nicole, that kind of goofiness, and two, the spirituality thing it is kind of scary, because when you first start to discover that about yourself, and I think a lot of people are on that self-discovery journey, you're afraid to mention it, that it might offend someone, or you might phrase it in the wrong way. And so, yeah, I think when we talk from our hearts, like we've kind of talked about acting out of your heart, now talking out of your heart, I think people connect with that. And whether you use the right word or not, I think people do give grace where we don't think they're going to give us grace. So, such a great topic. Thank you, Dan Snell and Dr. Brian Grossman, for joining us. Sounds like it's an ongoing process, and you're both adaptable. I love that so much. Lonnie says, no apologies. This is me. Good for you. Good for you. That reminds me of the song in The Greatest Showman, the This Is Me. Such a great song. Okay, well, we're going to shift gears just a little bit, and we're going to head on into our rapid fire question time. So this is the authenticity edition. These are quick questions to kind of like Is it this or that, either or quick questions that we can answer. And so as you're listening and watching, whether you're watching live or the replay, think about these questions, and we would love for you to answer them as well in the comments. So first question is going to be, is it easier to be yourself, fit in, or keep the peace? What do you think, Nicole?
Oh boy. In the past, for sure, fit in, I would think, and keep the peace. I was a pretty good people pleaser, so I think those two almost went together. And for sure, it's still easier probably to do those. I like because it's something I worked on. I worked on fitting in, worked on, keeping the peace. So it's still easier, but I'm working so much more on being myself, and it's a challenge, more of a challenge for me all the time, but it's so freeing when I do. Like when I'm really me, there's nothing to hide, right? You're not really hiding anything. And so I feel like there's so much freedom in being yourself. And so the more and more that I am just me, I think that's a way to create more freedom in your life, and that feeling of like deep connection for who you really truly are. And the other thing I think about all the time is, if you're not, there used to be a saying, and I'm trying to remember this right now, is, that you need to, your light needs to shine bright. Your own light needs to shine bright so that the people that need your light can find you. And I think about many times that if you are not being you, are you bringing in the people that need to find you? Are you actually being able to create the connections that are so authentic and deep? And I believe that happens when we are ourselves. So for me, I'm going to keep working on that part. The others are, yes, easier, but this is the part that I want to keep expanding. What about for you, Lori? What's easier for you?
Well, I'm definitely a recovering people pleaser as well. So I think, it is easy, like you said, to keep the peace. It's easier for me to keep the peace. But what I learned about in that period of time, it was about a year of time that I had to really dive down deep and work on myself and realize that I was actually hurting myself. Keeping the peace was not serving me, and it was actually hurting me, and I wasn't expressing what I needed. So I wasn't creating those boundaries in my life that, I wasn't able to tell people no. I was always just frazzled and trying to get everything done. And so that's a really hard one for me because I do love peace. I don't love difficult conversations. I don't love saying no. I had to say no today because I'm like, well, I have this on my schedule. I can't do it. And the answer was, well, that's not going to work for me. It's like, okay. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. I have to say no this time. And it wasn't even a no, it was a later, and it still wasn't okay. So I actually am pretty proud of myself for drawing that line and saying, you know what, I can't, right? So I would love to know, we've got some more people joining us. Hello, Gina. Hello, Jay. Hello, Mehmed. I love that you're here. You're joining us from Facebook and LinkedIn and YouTube. So fun. Chef Chasky. Craig, thank you for being here. He says he loves being the peacemaker, and that makes total sense. We've just expressed that we love being the peacemaker too. Okay, well, I love what Jay says. He says, my name is Jay and nobody can change who I am. Good for you. Good for you. Well said. Okay. Well, and okay, so that is totally on track with what we're talking about, keeping the peace, being yourself, fitting in. And thank you guys for being here and contributing to the conversation. So makes me feel better anyway. Okay, well, let's ask the next rapid fire question, which is, I love this one. When someone asks, how are you? Do you answer honestly? Do you say you're fine? Or does it depend on who's asking? That's a great one. What do you think, Nicole?
Oh my gosh. Well, I think some of it's programmed. Like when people ask me for sure, like, how are you? Oh, I'm good. I'm good. Thanks. I always say, I'm good. Thanks. And it is, I don't even think about it though. So that's a really crazy part of it is that I don't, I think I may think about it sometimes if I'm down, actually. I may pause for a little bit and not be like as enthusiastic about it. But I think in the past, have just been like, I'm good. Thanks. I'm good. And whether I am or not, I think I, for many years, didn't even think that question. Like it was more just like an opening. I wasn't really thinking about like the real being truthful on it because I think I didn't think like, do people really want to know how I'm doing? Do you really want to know? Because I don't know if you do. I think so many of us hide behind I'm good or I'm fine. I think many of us do because it's almost like a standard thing to say because underneath that there's so much more, right? There's so much more about what we go through every day and how we're feeling and the chatter in our head. And I, yeah, so my default would be I'm good. I'm good. And whether that's the right thing or not, if I'm here right now, I probably am good. Good enough. Good enough. Right? Like if I'm having this conversation with you, I'm obviously good enough. I'm still alive, still kicking right here. But really truthfully, I think in the past, sometimes I don't even want to share how I'm feeling I don't want to inconvenience somebody or, put a damper on the conversation. Like if they're all positive about things, do I want to come in? But there's certain friends that I have, and I think this is really important for all of us, that they can ask how you are, and you can be like, not good. I'm not good. And I think we learn who we feel safe with to say some of those things to and who we don't necessarily feel safe with. And I really think it's important to have the people that you feel safe with that you can say, I'm not good today. Like, or things are hard, or this is a challenge. And I'm very grateful that I have some people in my life that I can just completely like unload sometimes how I'm feeling, because we all need that. We need to be able to express those times. What about for you, Lori? How do you when somebody says, "Hey, Lori, how are you, Lori?" What do you usually say?
I think I'm about the same as you. I definitely have that default, like, I'm doing well. How are you? Right? It's how are you? How are you? And my question is, like you said, do they really want to know? And so there was an exercise one time I learned about this concept of answering honestly when someone says, "How are you?" And if you respond to them and say, "Well, do you really want to know?" and then watch their face, you'll know if they really want to know. So I love that. I love that. I encourage everyone to use that. Now, I wouldn't do that to a stranger. My neighbor just said, "Hello, how are you today?" I wouldn't say that to him because I don't really know him very well. But two things. If it's someone in your life who you would feel comfortable with sharing with, and I mean, to a degree, you can say that. You can say, "Do you really want to know?" And then if they say yes, then you can pull them aside and you have a great conversation. But I agree with you, Nicole. There are definitely people who, I think it depends on who's asking too, because it's how they ask. It's if you're passing someone in the hallway and they ask, then of course, like they're walking, they're probably not going to stop and take time. But if someone actually reaches out to you and says, "How are you today?" and you know that they care, then to me, that's a signal that, well, I'm gonna answer. I'm gonna answer honestly. Yeah. So yeah, Jay says depends on who the person is, but I always say that I'm fine only because there is a story behind who we are. So that's wise, Jay. For sure, for sure. And Gina says, or yeah, and Lonnie says, "How are you?" It depends on who's asking. And Gina says the same thing. It depends on who's asking. It's also a boundary, in my opinion. Great point. Great point. We just talked about how sometimes we don't need to know everything or share everything with someone, with everyone, right? So Jay says, I'm curious to know, how are you super girls doing? Oh, snap. Okay, here we are. Who's asking? We just met, Jay. No. I love this question. Thank you for taking that bold step and, asking the question. So I will answer that. Let's answer it, Nicole. Why not? So for me, how am I doing? Today, I'm doing much better than I was 2 days ago. 2 days ago, I had really high anxiety about life and my decisions and where it was going and what I was going to do. And it just was overwhelming me. And I literally, told someone, I'm sad. I'm sad. And so when someone asked me, how are you feeling? I said, I'm sad today. I don't know why. And so I had the opportunity to talk with that person and receive some encouragement. And, it really did help. So I think that this is a great point for all of us to actually, when we get asked that question, instead of just wanting to, close up into a little ball or a shell, if that person feels safe, then I encourage you to actually answer it honestly. So how are you today, Nicole?
Well, Lori, thank you for expressing how you were feeling. And you and I've talked. And so I know like a lot that you have been moving through. And I'm so glad we can have those conversations for sure. And actually for me too, like a few days ago, I haven't been feeling that well lately. Like my energy has been really low. And I think, I've been going through the big M, menopause, which has been more challenging than I thought it was going to be. And my energy just, I haven't felt myself, and I'm usually pretty high energy. And so it's been a little bit more, not even just frustrating, like you go through a lot of emotions as you're moving through life. And so I would say today I'm feeling so much better because I've taken action towards it. So I'm doing something to help myself move through it. And I've been doing lots of stuff before that, but I realized that I probably needed a little bit more. And so I'm really grateful. I think the second you find something that is going to help you move forward, the second you take some action towards something that you've been struggling with, it's like the clouds disappear a little bit, the sun comes out, and you're like, okay, I'm coming back. And so today I'm feeling better too. And I always, when it's a Friday and I get to be with yourself and Debbie, we're missing Debbie today, but when I get to be with you, it lifts me up so much. And so I think that's another thing in life, is like having things that you look forward to, people that you love to be around, to kind of lift those spirits too. So I'm glad that we were asked that question. So thank you so much, because I think that's a really, like, if we were to be honest, it's interesting for people to know what really is going behind the scenes, a little bit what's happening behind the scenes. So thank you. Thank you for the comments. Thank you for everybody that's commenting. I'm really, I love this. Jay said, today is a pretty exciting day. It's National French Fries Day 2026. Get out there and reward yourself with French fries. Oh my gosh, that's so good. And thank you, Gina. Thank you. It's a journey for a lot of us as women as we age. What our bodies go through and what we were used to and what is now changing in our life. It's a transition really for many of us. And so thank you, Gina. Thank you for that.
Yeah. I love that. And Lonnie too, thank you for commenting. You're excited to be welcoming another grandchild into the world.
Lonnie, so exciting. I'm so happy for you. So happy for you.
Super, super fun. And I just actually welcomed one into one of those. I actually welcomed a grandson into our family a week ago on the 25th. So it's super exciting. This was my first. And so Lonnie, I might be reaching out to you for some advice. But thank you everyone for commenting and liking and loving this post. And if you're enjoying this, share it with someone. You can take this wherever you're finding it, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and share it with someone you're thinking of. We have set up events every single week in both in LinkedIn and in Facebook. So you can join those events, and we try to share them in our own social media platforms. So be looking for those. But if you join the event, you get reminders and you get to come live and take part in this wonderful conversation. And we're so grateful you're here. So thanks everyone for joining. So the next question, this is a pretty good one too. Are you more likely to ask for what you need, hope someone notices, or figure it out yourself? That's a toughie. What do you think, Nicole?
That is such a tough one because I was like almost all of them. But anyways, I think for many, many years, and I feel like even when I was married or dating, I think I'd be in that hope I hope they would figure it out. Like I didn't give the information. And I when I look back now, I'm like, that wasn't necessarily fair, right? For them to be the mind reader and be like, oh, I hope that they just know exactly what I want and what I need and when I need it. But I think what that came from was that fear of asking too much of somebody. So I would sit back and hope that they would maybe figure it out, and then I wouldn't have to ask. And then it would, and then also, I mean, obviously, when they're doing it, it's like, oh, well, they care deeply about that, but how can they without having some of the information? So I would say today, I definitely figure things out. It's like one of my things that I work on all the time is I love actually the challenge to figure things out now. So that's one of the things that I move through. But I did for sure recognize in myself before. I think I wasn't always communicating enough of what I did need for fear of putting people out. And then I just hope that they would know what, like, oh, surprise me with the exact thing that I want, but without expressing what it was. But I'm getting way bigger or better at figuring out what I need to say and what I need to do, and giving people a break that way too, so that they don't have to guess. How about for you, Lori?
Oh goodness, that hits me. That hits me hard. I think I developed a habit of definitely just hoping people would kind of clue into what I needed by dropping little hints, whether it was with things that I said or body language or that kind of thing. And that just didn't ever work for me. In fact, it created more anxiety in me because then it create these expectations of what you want to happen. And when it doesn't happen, you're let down, but you never really communicated it to anyone. So for me, I think that has been a habit that I've had to break. And it's still hard to ask for what I need, and so definitely I had to learn how to delegate in my professional life. And once I get better at that, I was able to not do it all myself, but definitely a challenge. How about everyone else? Let's hear what you have to say. There's no shame in asking for help. Thank you, Jay. If you can figure it out by yourself. Very true. Sometimes it just makes sense. I could do it faster. Why would I ask someone to do it? But when you're overwhelmed and you're overworked, I think that is definitely a struggle that we don't want to ask for help, and we're embarrassed or think that maybe they're going to think we're not doing our job or doing a good job of whatever it is, whether it's motherhood or relationships or a job. So Gina says, oh, a toughie indeed. I will first try to figure it out myself. Yeah, we are self-made women, aren't we? I love that so much. Well, thank you guys for piping in and giving these answers. It's super helpful to hear from you. Lonnie says we can all get better at asking for help, but the ask needs to be specific so people know how they can help. So very good. So good. Thank you, Lonnie. Thank you, everyone. And so, yeah, this has been such an amazing conversation. I can't believe that we're towards the end of our discussion already, our conversation. This is a shared diary. So as you can tell, we want you to chime in and we want to hear from you. And it actually brings more value when you do, because you get to speak up and we get to hear your voice, and we get to hear the entry of your diary, and that means a lot to us. So that's why we created this space. That's why we kind of, I think, invented this kind of platform. I don't know of any other podcasts doing this, so I might just go ahead and say that we invented it, right? But we are so grateful that you guys are here. So thanks for being here. And if you're watching the replay, then please do share it with someone that you love and who could be a part of our conversation next week. Every Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern, we will be here. So we always like to give a little bit of value at the very end of this. And thank you, Tanya, for joining us. And we're glad you're here. We're glad you're here. So if you missed the rest of it, when this live is over, you can go back and watch from the very beginning. It's been an amazing conversation. We are talking about why is it so hard to show up as the real me, right? So here's some great things and tips that you can do, some actionable practices this week. Notice one moment when you're tempted to say what people want to hear instead of what you truly think. Ask yourself, am I choosing this because it feels true to me or because I want to be accepted? Share one honest thought or feeling with someone you trust instead of keeping it to yourself. That's a big one. Pay attention to the people you feel safest being yourself around. What makes those relationships different? Because that's really, really helpful to know someone who you can totally be 100% who you are with no fear. So I have loved this time together. Nicole, I would love for you to just give us some last and final thoughts before we give our last share diary questions and offer an extra resource for you guys so you can enter into your diaries this week.
Yeah, I would love to know other people's practices on how they are learning to show up as their most authentic self. Like what are they doing that is helping them step into it? I think social media has been a very challenging thing for a lot of us. There's a lot of people out there right now and showing up and sharing their things. And I know for some people, they get very scared to share who they truly are on there because of, comments that you can get. You put yourself out there and then you're so scared of what somebody might say that's public and it's in front of people. And so I would love to hear like how you're feeling on that topic too, like what that's like for you, because social media is a big thing now. And I think, as people are trying to grow their businesses or, share their light or become whatever it is, whether they're an influencer, it takes a lot of courage, I think, to put yourself out there. Every single person that goes and does their thing, it takes quite a bit of courage. But I feel like it's one of the places that we probably have the most trouble being ourselves based on what we believe somebody's going to say. And I find that with so many women I work with in business, that's a big fear is like, what will people say and how I show up? So that's another question there. But what I was reflecting on, and I was thinking about this, is when we were really little, and I love watching kids. Kids to me are just so fascinating because they are so like, look at me, watch me. This is what I'm doing. I don't really care. They just have their inhibitions are kind of not there, right? They have fun and they're probably their most authentic self. Like when you watch children, they really are in their own world of who they are and they're not apologizing for much. But what I picture is that, as children age and as they go through life experiences, they learn what it's like to be, or who they need to be in order to be safe, like who they need to be in order to be accepted, who they need to be in order to fit in. And so I keep thinking about like, if we could bring back a little bit more of that childlike, of course we have other responsibilities and different things that, we're not going to be running through naked, I don't know, somewhere like kids, in the summer on the beach. But, well, maybe some places, yes, maybe. But But what are some of the things that, when you were really young, that was so easy for you, like so easy to, how could you like bring some of that joy back in, and some of your authentic, like who you just, like when you walked in a room, who were you? Could you talk to everybody? Did you love to dance? Did you love to ride a horse? Were you a little performer, or were you not a performer? Did you love whatever? But coming back to just some of those things of like, when we're searching for our most authentic self, sometimes I think we just need to look back in time of what we were known as, even when you were little, right? As who you were. So that's another thought and another way for us to connect a little deeper into that pureness of our heart and the joy that we came in with. And how about for you, Lori? What are some thoughts that you have? Because this topic, I could talk about this topic for a long time because it's a big topic. But what for you do you think you want to share a little bit more on with this topic?
Yeah, well, I just want to echo what you said. I love how you said it too, Nicole. I don't know that I could add to it any better than how you worded, just being able to tap into those things that bring us joy, because that really is the heart of who we are. When you're experiencing, it's not happiness. Happiness is different than joy. When you're experiencing joy, satisfaction in something that you're doing or a relationship that you're having, not that everything has to always be perfect, but when you're experiencing that joy, what brings you joy? And like you said, go ride that horse, go jump on the trampoline. There's so many things that we can go and do, even moving your body. That's another great thing to do to get us out of that funk. But I love what you said, Nicole, and I totally agree. Lonnie says, be curious. That's so good. So good. Yeah. So that kind of brings me to our final questions that we encourage you guys to enter into your diary. You can literally just take a pen and pencil or pen and pad and write down these 4 questions. What's bringing you joy right now? What's challenging you right now? What's inspiring you right now? And what's one thing you're grateful for right now or this week? So I love this because it takes us back to just who we are, our own individual lives and experiences, and it brings us back to ourselves. So a bonus question would be, what's the one way you're giving yourself permission to be more authentically you this week? So we are so glad you guys joined us. I mean, it really brings, if we were just talking without having this interaction, I feel like it wouldn't bring me as much joy, selfishly. So thank you for being here. And please invite your friends. You can like and subscribe to any podcast place that you go to get your podcast, YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and so many others. You can join us on the shareddiary.podcast.com and, connect with us and tell us your story and get those extra resources. We're putting out guides every week for reflection. And it's one of the things that we just want to give to you because it matters. You matter. And we're opening up our diary and we're so glad you are too. So I want to ask one final question before we end our time, because we always ask this question, just it's in one sentence or two. If you wrote one sentence at the bottom of today's diary entry, what would it say? Maybe it's, this week I'm giving myself permission to fill in the blank, or maybe it's I feel fill in the blank. What is your sentence, Nicole?
I always like think about this one for us at the end, and I would say to myself, keep practicing, Nicole. Just keep practicing being you. I feel like I don't need to say a lot more. I just think, for many of us, we've been practicing being not ourselves for a really long time. And so keep practicing being you. How about you, Lori?
I love that. I love that. And Tanya, thanks you for your comment, your expressing yourself about sometimes feeling depressed. And so I just want to acknowledge that. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for being the real, authentic you we love that you shared that, and we will definitely be talking about that in the future. So please come back. Please be a part of this conversation. Please reach out on our website. You can find how to contact us, shareddiarypodcast.com.
Mhm.
This is another thing, just being yourself, right? Stumbling over your words and just showing up imperfectly. And I think that would be what I would want to say. My sentence would be, I'm showing up. If I wrote one sentence at the bottom of my diary today, I would say, I'm showing up. I'm committed to showing up every single day, whether that means in relationships, whether it means in what I do for work, whether that means, whatever else, interactions with strangers, right? I'm showing up. So, I love that. Lonnie says, keep showing up. Perfect. Well, thank you guys again for joining us. And of course, we are missing our Debbie, but we appreciate you so much. Debbie is the mastermind behind getting this all put together and where it streams all these different places. So I love it. And we love you, and we love all of you. So we're going to end our time today. Please meet us back here next Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern, and we will see you guys then.
Thank you.
Before we close today's diary, we just want to say thank you. Thank you for spending your time with us, for listening, for reflecting, and for being willing to open your heart along with ours. It truly means more than you know. The Shared Diary isn't just our story, it's yours too. If today's conversation encouraged you, challenged you, or reminded you that you're not alone, we'd love for you to stay connected. You can find us at shareddiarypodcast.com, where you'll discover episode archives, resources, and ways to connect with our community. If you'd like to reach out to Lori, Debbie, or Nicole, you'll find all of our information there as well. We'd love to hear your story. If you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, or LinkedIn, don't forget to like this episode, leave us a comment, and subscribe so you never miss a conversation. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you enjoy podcasts, be sure to follow the show, leave a rating, and share it with someone who might need to hear today's message. Most importantly, keep showing up, keep growing, keep sharing your story, because life is better when the diary is open. We're here for you. You're not alone. We'll see you next time on The Shared Diary.